Ralph S. here to share with you a story. I've heard this in several different forms, always recognizably the same story. I first heard it from one of my grandparents when I was 8 or 9 years old. And it's a story about a rabbi of some reputation in the 18th century named of Israel ben Eleazar. Some of you may recognize him by his nickname, the Baal Shem Tov. This rabbi had a talent for helping people. I'm not talking about healing them in the sense of getting cripples to throw away their crutches or the deaf to heal, but he had a knack after a brief conversation with someone who was troubled, that he was able to identify what the internal conflict was that was causing them difficulty, and had the ability to prescribe a simple course of action that would enable them to remedy this conflict and be able to live their life uh, through more fullness going forward. Um, the Baal Shem Tov, as you may imagine, had many disciples, one of whom took care of his horse and wagon, and he traveled widely throughout Eastern Europe. There are, in fact, many stories about him, and this is one of them. One day he tells the disciple that was managing his travels, took care of his horses and the wagon that they drew, and traveled with him on all his many journeys. And he told them that in the morning we're traveling to, he mentioned a specific town that was some distance away. And it was known that in this particular town there was a bishop who practiced a particularly virulent form of anti-Semitism. As it seems that on Good Friday every spring, he would seize one of the Jews off the streets in the Jewish quarter, imprison them in the basement of the church, and at the height of the Easter Mass, execute the Jew as part of their celebration of the resurrection of their Savior. Um, so the Baal Shem Tov and his disciple journeyed to this town. When they got there, the inhabitants thereof, it happened to have been Good Friday, quickly wished the two of them off the streets and behind closed doors. The horse and wagons were taken to the stable where they were taken care of by the workmen there. Uh, Later that day, while they were at meal, they saw the bishop coming with his bully boys down the street looking for a Jew to seize. As you can imagine, the streets were empty. Um, the rabbi tells his disciple, "Go tell the bishop I wish to speak to him." Um the disciple dutifully carried the message. The bishop was thrilled with the prospect of having such a famous rabbi as their sacrificial lamb, if you will, for the Easter Mass, and quickly came into a discussion. The rabbi and the bishop were behind closed doors for an hour or more. When the door opened, the bishop came out, shuffling his feet, tears streaming down his face. Didn't say anything to anyone, stumbled out into the street, and told his waiting attendants that there was to be no more sacrificing on Easter Sunday, and they left the Jewish quarter. As you can imagine, the Jews of the city were thrilled, and the rabbi just after celebrating the Sabbath with the people on Sunday morning, as the Christians in the town were preparing for Easter Mass, the rabbi and the disciple left town going back home. In the fullness of time, the rabbi got sick, and on his deathbed, he called all his disciples to him, and there were several, and he gave each one a task to do, a job that he wanted them to perform as a means of carrying out and continuing his work. And when he got to the disciple that managed his travels, he told him what his task was to travel from town to town and tell people stories of their travels together. The disciple said, "Am I supposed to do this for the rest of my life?" And the rabbi said, "No, at some time you will be given a sign. Don't ask me what it is. I don't know what it is, but you will recognize it. And when you see that sign, you will know that it's be time for you to settle down, take a wife, and live out the rest of your life in peace and prosperity." Later that evening, the rabbi passed away, and the disciples went about their business as he had directed them. After several years of traveling from town to town and telling these stories, he got word that there was a merchant in northern Italy that had promised taken a pledge to give a golden ducat to anyone who could tell him a story that he hadn't heard. Well, as you can imagine, this disciple was thrilled because this was clearly the sign. And you want to hear a story I haven't heard? I got a million of them. So off to northern Italy he goes. When he gets there, he's greeted by the merchant, warmly taken into his mansion, given a comfortable room, fed a sumptuous dinner, and the following morning they break their fast. Then the two of them retire to a sitting room. The disciple is seated in a very comfortable chair. A screen is put in front of him so the two men cannot see each other. And the merchant sits in another comfortable chair. And the disciple proceeds to tell the story that I just related to you. At the conclusion of the story, the screen is thrown aside, the merchant, tears streaming down his face. He gets on his knees, hugging the disciple's legs, and the disciple said, what's going on here? And the merchant tells him, I was in that story. I was that bishop. And your master convinced me that what I was doing was not a celebration of the divine, but was in fact an act of evil. Now I told him, my understanding of the God is that he will forgive me. But how? I pleaded with him. How can I ever forgive myself for such an inimical act? And you know what your master told me? He told me, if in the course of time someone tells you your story, you will know that that will mean that God has given you permission to forgive yourself. Now that's the end of the tale. For those of us that have been in 12-step recovery, whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, uh, Gamblers Anonymous, sexual compulsion, or any one of several dozen eating disorders, we're in 12-step recovery. What we're told by the people that are helping us is that when we're in these meetings, for us to listen to the similarities, not the differences. Now, superficially, that is so that we can understand that we're where we belong. We're in a group of people that understand us, that we all have a similar experience. But I wonder if you peel back that cover just a little bit, maybe we're listening for the similarities so that when I hear my story told by someone else, that means God has given me permission to forgive myself. Thank you.